Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to Windows Server 2012, Understanding Domain and Forest Functionality. Windows Server 2012 R2 Active Directory uses a concept called Domain and Forest Functionality. The functional level that you choose during the Active Directory installation determines which features your domain can use. Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2 include additional forest functionality compared to Windows Server 2003. Forest functionality applies to all of the domains within a forest. About the domain functional level, Windows Server 2012 R2 will support the following domain functional levels: Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, Windows Server 2012 R2. Which functional level you use depends on the domain controllers you have installed on your network. This is an important fact to remember. You can use Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, 2008 R2, and Windows Server 2012 member servers in the Windows Server 2012 R2 functional level, as long as all domain controllers are running Windows Server 2012 R2. When you are deciding which function level you will use in your organization, you must choose the function level of your lowest domain controller. For example, if you have a Windows Server 2003 domain controller, your function levels should be Windows Server 2003. If you choose a higher level, the Windows Server 2003 domain controller will not function. Be careful. Once a forest function level is upgraded, it cannot be downgraded lower than Windows Server 2008. Table 3.1 shows the features available in Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 domain function levels. So here's the table here. I'll let you have a quick look at it before I move on. Okay, and here we go again. Table continued. Okay, about forest functionality. Windows Server 2012 R2 forest functionality applies to all of the domains in a forest. All domains have to be upgraded to Windows Server 2012 R2 before the forest can be upgraded to Windows Server 2012 R2. There are 5 levels of forest functionality: Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, Windows Server 2012 R2. Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 have many of the same forest features. Some of these features are described in the following list: Global Catalog Replication Enhancements. When an administrator adds a new attribute to the global catalog, only those changes are replicated to other global catalogs in the forest. This can significantly reduce the amount of network traffic generated by replication. Defunct schema classes and attributes. You can never permanently remove classes and attributes from the Active Directory schema. However, you can mark them as defunct so they cannot be used. With Windows Server 2012, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 forest functionality, you can redefine the defunct schema attribute so that it occupies a new role in the schema. Forest trusts. Previously, systems administrators have had no easy way of granting permission on resources in different forests. Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, with Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2 resolve some of these difficulties by allowing trust relationships between separate Active Directory Forests trusts act much like domain trusts, except that they extend to every domain in two forests, not that all forest trusts are intransitive. Linked value. Replication with Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, and Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2 use a concept called linked value replication. With linked value replication, only the user record that has been changed is replicated. This can significantly reduce network traffic associated with replication, renaming domains. Although the Active Directory domain structure was originally designed to be flexible, there were several limitations because of mergers, acquisitions, corporate reorganizations, and other business changes. You may need to rename domains in Windows Server 2003, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2. You can change the DNS and net bias names for any domain. Note that this operation is not as simple as just a rename command. Instead, there's a specific process you must follow to make sure the operation is successful. Fortunately, when you properly follow the procedure, Microsoft supports domain renaming, even though not all applications support it. Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 also support the following features: improved replication, algorithms, and dynamic auxiliary classes are designed to increase performance scalability, and reliability. Active Directory Federation Services, ADFS, also known as TrustBridge, handles federated identity management. Federated identity management is a standards-based information technology process that enables distributed identification, authentication, and authorization across organizational and platform boundaries. The ADFS solution in Windows Server 2003 R2, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 help administrators address these challenges by enabling organizations to share a user's identity information security. Active Directory Lightweight Directory Service, ADLDS, was developed for organizations that require flexible support for directory-enabled applications. ADLDSS, which uses the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP, is a directory service that adds flexibility and helps organizations avoid increased infrastructure costs. Active Directory Recycle Bin, Windows Server 2008 R2 forest level or higher, provides administrators with the ability to restore deleted objects in their entirety while ADDS is running. Before this, if you deleted an Active Directory object, you needed to recover it from a backup. Now you can recover the object from the AD recycle bin. Planning the domain structure. Once you have verified the technical configuration of your server for Active Directory, it's time to verify the Active Directory configuration for your organization. Since the content of this chapter focuses on installing the first domain in your environment, you really need to know the following information prior to beginning setup: the DNS name of resolution, the computer name or the net bias name of the server, which will be used by previous versions of Windows to access server resources, in which domain function level the domain will operate, whether other DNS servers are available on the network, what type of and how many DNS servers are available on the network. However, If you will be installing additional domain controllers in your environment, or you will be attaching to an existing Active Directory structure, you should also have the following information. If this domain controller will join an existing domain, you should know the name of that domain. You will also require a password for a member of the Enterprise Administrators group for that domain, or have someone with those permissions create a domain account before promotion. You should know whether the new domain will join an existing tree, and if so, the name of the tree it will join. You should also know the name of the forest to which the domain will connect. Installing Active Directory. Installing Active Directory is an easy and straightforward process as long as you plan adequately and make the necessary decisions beforehand. There are many ways that you can install Active Directory. You can install Active Directory by using Windows Server 2012 or 2, installation disk, install from media IFM using Server Manager, or using Windows PowerShell. But before you can do the actual installation, you must first make sure that your network is ready for the install. In the following sections, you'll look at the required steps to install the first domain controller in a given environment, Adprep. When you are adding a new user to Active Directory, you fill in fields such as first name, last name, and so on. These fields are called attributes. The problem is that when you go to install Windows Server 2012 or 2, its version of Active Directory has newer attributes than the previous versions of Active Directory. Thus, you need to set up your current version of Active Directory so that it can accept the installation of Windows Server 2012 or 2 Active Directory. This is why you use Adprep. Adprep is required to run in order to add the first Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controller to an existing domain or forest. You would need to run Adprep forest prep to add the first Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controller to an existing forest. Adprep forest prep must be run by an administrator who is a member of the Enterprise Admins group, the Schema Admins group, and the Domain Admins group of the domain that the hosts the Schema master. You would need to run Adprep domain prep to add the first Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controller to an existing domain. Again, to achieve this command, you must be a member of the Domain Admins group of the domain where you are installing the Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controller. Adprep or ODC prep must be run to add the first Windows Server 2012 or 2 RODC to an existing forest. The administrator who runs this command must be a member of the Enterprise Admins group. One feature that is new to Windows Server 2012 or to Active Directory installation process is that, if needed, Adprep will automatically be executed during the normal Active Directory domain services installation. Active Directory prerequisites. Before you install Active Directory into your network, you must first make sure that your network and the server meet some minimum requirements. Table 3.2 will show you the requirements needed for Active Directory. Requirement description, Adprep. When adding the first Windows Server 2012 or 2 domain controller to an existing Active Directory domain, Adprep commands run automatically as needed. Credentials. When installing a new ADDS forest, the administrator must be set up local administrator on the first server. To install an additional domain controller in an existing domain, you need to be a member of the Domain Admins group, DNS. Domain name system needs to be installed for Active Directory to function properly. you can install DNS during the Active Directory installation, NTFS, the Windows Server 2012 R2 drives that store the database log files, and sysvol folder must be placed on a volume that is formatted with the NTFS file system or ODCs. Read-only domain controllers can be installed as long as another domain controller, Windows Server 2008 or newer, already exists on the domain. Also, the forest functional level must be at least Windows Server 2003 TCP/IP. You must configure the appropriate TCP/IP settings on your domain, and you must configure the DNS server addresses. The installation process. Windows Server 2012 R2 computers are configured as either member servers if they are joined to a domain, or standalone servers if they are part of a workgroup. The process of converting a server to a domain controller is known as promotion through the use of a simple and intuitive wizard in Server Manager. System administrators can quickly configure servers to be domain controllers after installation. Administrators also have the ability to promote domain controllers using Windows PowerShell. The first step in installing Active Directory is promoting a Windows Server 2012 R2 computer to a domain controller. The first domain controller in an environment serves as the starting point for the forest trees domains, and the operations master roles. Exercise 3.2 shows the steps you need to follow to promote an existing Windows Server 2012 R2 computer to a domain controller. To complete the steps in this exercise, you must have already installed and configured a Windows Server 2012 R2 computer. You also need a DNS server that supports SRV records. If you do not have a DNS server available, the Active Directory installation wizard automatically configures one for you. Exercise 3.2, promoting a domain controller. 1. Install the Active Directory domain services by clicking the Add Roles and Features link in Server Manager's dashboard view. 2. At the Before You Begin screen, click Next. 3. The select installation type screen will be next. Make sure that the role-based radio button is selected and click Next. 4. At the Select Destination Server screen, choose the local machine, click Next. 5. At the Select Server Role screen, click the checkbox for Active Directory Domain Services. 6. After you check the Active Directory Domain Services box, a pop-up menu will appear asking you to install additional features. Click the Add Features button. 7. Click Next. 8. At the Select Feature screen, accept the defaults and click Next. 9. Click Next at the Information screen. 10. Click the Install button at the Confirmation Installation screen. 11. The installation screen will show you how the installation is progressing. 12. After the installation is complete, click the Close button. 13. On the left side view, click the ADDS link. 14. Click the More link next to configuration required for Active Directory domain services. 15. Under the Post Deployment Configuration section, click the Promote this server to a domain controller link. 16. At this point, you will configure this domain controller. You are going to install a new domain controller in a new domain in a new forest. At the deployment configuration screen, choose the Add a New Forest radio button. You then need to add a root domain name. In this exercise, I will use cibex.com. Click Next. 17. At the domain controller option screen, set the following options: function levels, Windows Server 2008 or 2 for both, verify that the DNS and global catalog checkboxes are checked, password there as you can see, then click next. 18, add the DNS screen, click next. 19, at the additional options screen, accept the default net bias name and click next. 20, at the paths screen, accept the default locations and click next. 21, at the review option screen, verify your settings and click next. At the prerequisites check screen, click the install button as long as there are no errors. 23, after the installation completes, the machine will automatically reboot. Log in as the administrator. 24, close server manager. 25, click the start button on the keyboard and choose administrative tools. 26, you should see a new MMC snap-ins for Active Directory. 27, close the administrative tools window. Exercise 3.3, installing ADs on server core. At the server core command prompt, type cd/windows/system32, press enter. Type timedate.cpl and set your date, local time zone and time. Click OK. 3, type NTSH, press enter. 4, type interface, press enter. 5, type IPv4, press enter. 6, type show IP, press enter. This will show you the current TCP IP address and the interface with which the TCP IP address is associated. 7, as you can see, interface 12 in my Ethernet interface. To change this interface, type the following command and press enter. Set address name 12, source static address 192.168.15.165, mask 255.255.255.0, gateway 192.168.15.1. 8, type show IP, press enter. You should see that the new address is now manual and set to the IP address you set. Type exit and press enter. 10, type net user administrator, press enter. 11, type in your password and then confirm the password. 12, type the following command, press enter. Net rename computer computer name / new name : server A. 13, type Y, press enter. 14, type shutdown RTO, press enter. This will reboot the machine. After the reboot, log back into the system. 15, type PowerShell, press enter. 16, at the PowerShell prompt, type add Windows feature DNS, press enter. This will add DNS to the server. 17, at the PowerShell prompt, type add Windows feature AD domain services and press enter. 18, at the PowerShell prompt, type import module AD DS deployment. 19, at the PowerShell prompt, type AD DS forest. 20, type in your domain name, press enter. 21, next you will be asked for your safe mode administrator password. Type in P@SSW0RD and then confirm it. Type Y, press enter. Active Directory will install and the machine will automatically reboot. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing and subscribing. Thank you.